I used to hate Mogh. I mean, really, really hate him. When I first encountered his spectral conjuration in the sewers beneath Langdell, he obliterated me. I found the timing of his trident swings obscene, and the carpet of blood flame across the arena execrable. It infuriated me. I felt like I would never grasp the pacing of the fight, nor the spatial dynamics. I remember searching online and commiserating from afar with disgruntled Reddit posters. I eventually got past Sewer Mogh with empty Estus flasks and a well-used spirit summons, and I washed my hands of the whole encounter. So it was especially disheartening when I discovered him skulking at the peak of Mohgwyn Palace in an even more menacing form. The fight against this version of Mogh forced me to get good. Even with spirit summons on that playthrough, they weren't going to be able to carry me. I put in the effort, and eventually the timing clicked. After just as much painstaking trial and error against the Blood Flame in Phase 2, I finally understood what FromSoft was doing with this fight. Since then, I've considered it a genius piece of technical theater. Mogh is a merciless inquisitor who separates those who've truly learned what Elden Ring has taught you from those whose education remains ongoing. In this video, I'll explain how. The biggest impediment in Mogh's first phase is the timing. Mogh has fairly considerable delays, and these are quite polarizing in general. I don't mind them as a general principle in Elden Ring, but they initially stand in the way of the fight's real dynamism. In my first video essay on this channel about why I love Dark Souls 3, I talked about the feeling of artistry and choreography in many of its boss fights. It's a FromSoft trademark that, in my opinion, makes the laborious effort all worth it. Mogh's fight carries this mantle forward, but to unlock the dance, you need to learn his moveset. Fortunately, he doesn't actually have that many moves in the first phase, which is a fair trade-off for the counter-intuition of the few that he does. In my analysis video on the Nameless King from Dark Souls 3, I spoke of that fight as being as much against your own impulses as against the actual boss, and this fight has the same energy. Conquer your impulses related to timing, and you'll master his. The relative simplicity of the moveset then allows for an almost graceful, leisurely back and forth that juxtaposes wonderfully with the sheer perversity of the lore, the arena, and the boss himself. It's an excellent contrast. But there's more. Those who have watched my videos, including my recent Get Good at Combat guide, will know that I'm generally interested in non-rolling forms of evasion. You can definitely get through this fight with just rolling, but to appreciate the technical genius of Mogh's battle, you'll want to take advantage of two key aspects of combat: positioning and strafing. Now, Mogh's fireball attack presents the perfect opportunity to utilize both. You'll find that when he initiates it, you can actually simply complete a small partial circle around him and find yourself outside of its blast radius. In fact, it's so easy to do this that you don't even need to run, you can just walk around him. Strafing here, as it often does, allows you to begin a counterattack much faster than dodge rolling would. But that's not the end of the story. The game positively encourages a strafe here, because on Mogh's next swing, you'll actually be beneath his hitbox. This means you can attack immediately after your strafe and while he's discharging one of his lumbering melee attacks. When you take advantage of non-rolling evasive tactics here, you actually end up unlocking one of the most generous counterattack windows in the entire fight. It's brilliant. Mogh's first phase also lets you wet your feet with the crucial role that positioning and spatial awareness will play in the second phase. First, when he does his weird Latin counting moves, you'll again be rewarded for thoughtful positioning. Standing on his offhand side will put you outside the hitbox of his subsequent swing, again unlocking an extremely generous attack window. He's also going to use 2 or 3 Blood Flame attacks that serve as instructional tokens of their much more taxing iterations in the second phase. The downpour around him helps ensure that you don't just wail on him, and the horizontal spray teaches you to roll forward rather than backwards, which will be punished. He will very seldomly use his vertical spray in Phase 1, but I have seen it a few times. Regardless, that vertical spray will feature just as prominently as the horizontal one in Phase 2, and the key here is to pay attention to what his hand does right before he throws the blood flame to determine if you need to dodge forward or dodge to the side. Phase 2 is where things get truly bananas, and it's a source of consistent complaints online. The sheer magnitude of how much of the arena becomes unusable in this phase can be quite frustrating and may seem genuinely broken at first. But, in fact, this represents a test of one of the core tenets of combat in FromSoft games: be aggressive. Veteran players know this adage as well as they know don't get greedy. Mogh's second phase is so brilliant because it reminds us that no matter how well we know this adage, there's always room to further internalize it. If you attempt to avoid Mogh or get skittish or run away, you will without variation find yourself in blood flame that decimates your health and curtails your movement in the second phase. However, if you maintain aggression with precise spatial awareness, you'll find that Mogh leaves you a narrow but very much deliberate path of safe engagement. Stay in his immediate vicinity and dodge his trident swings just like you do in the first phase, as opposed to freaking out and running away, and you'll sidestep the blood flame. The blood flame will create a perimeter around you, so you can't dodge willy-nilly. You need to make sure your rolls are well-timed and well-oriented, but there's always a safe path. When Mogh flies into the air and throws his blood flame, you treat it just like in Phase 1, dodge forward, albeit a little faster this time. Then, when he lands, dodge backwards. You'll find you then have a sort of pizza-shaped slice of bloodless arena in which you can maneuver. His next attack will usually bisect this pizza slice, so you'll need to make a quick decision about where you're going to go. Then the intricate dance will just continue. It's just so awesome for me to see that if you do it right, the developers have almost perfectly paced things such that just as new blood flames are being cast, older ones are evaporating, clearing out your next destination. Overall, sure, Mogh's music, voice acting, lore, aesthetics are all top-notch, but the mechanical brilliance of this fight, the way it demands precision but in exchange offers you surprisingly munificent windows for attack, make it, in my opinion, a visual and technical spectacle that stacks up strongly among the best of its peers.